We're working on number 7 on page 2 of the Prerequisites practice test. We have another slope problem, so we'll be using the formula from the last video. So we have the second y minus the first y, negative 1, over the second x, negative 3, minus the first x, 5. So once again, I see that double negative, and I know I have to take care of it first. So make it a big plus, and we have negative 1 plus 1, which is 0 over negative 8. And we learned in class that you can never leave 0 in a fraction. It's never simplified if 0 is in the numerator or denominator. So again, we have that negative down there, so you don't want to use the fraction key, and you don't really want to put a negative in front of a 0. That's kind of weird. So use your division key, and your calculator will tell you, well, we almost have the exact same problem there. 0 divided by negative 8 is 0. So don't write undefined, don't write negative 8, don't guess. Let your calculator tell you if you don't know that 0. So then we have to simplify to get full credit, so we write m equals 0. So you guys remember what kind of line has a slope of 0? 0. Fun, skiing. That means it's a horizontal line, right? So we can ski on it, but it's 0. Fun. So if we were to graph those 2 points, they would form a horizontal line. Okay, number 8 is next. So we are trying to determine whether the line containing these 2 points and the line containing these 2 points, if we were to put them on a graph, would those 2 lines be parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So the only thing we know about parallel lines is they never cross, and we learned in a previous section that the slopes are the same. Perpendicular lines, we know they cross in right angles, but what we know about them mathematically is the slopes are opposites, which means one's positive, one's negative, and they're reciprocals. So since really the only thing we know about these are slopes, that should be your hint. Oh, have 2 points. I need to find my slope. So let's first find the slope of the first line. So we'll call it m sub 1. Second y, 0, minus the first y, 1, over second x, 0, minus the first x, 7. So we get negative 1 over negative 7, but we learned we can never leave a double negative in a fraction. A negative divided by a negative is positive. So my first slope is 1/7. Now let's go ahead and find the second slope. So that we'll call m sub 2 since it's the slope of line 2. Do the same thing, and then we'll compare. So second y, negative 6, minus the first y, negative 8. Second x, 4, minus the first x, negative 10. So we got a couple double negatives there we need to take care of. So we'll just make that a big plus sign, and we'll make that a big plus sign. So now it's negative 6 plus 8, or you could say 8 minus 6, which is 2, and 4 plus 10, 14. But as we discussed in class, we can't leave slope not simplified. So these are both even, which means they're both divisible by 2, because if you don't simplify it, you're going to think these 2 lines are neither, and they're not neither, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, 14 divided by 2 is 7. Boom, look at that. Same slopes. They have the same slope. We know that means they are parallel. There we go. And what would the second one have had to be if they were perpendicular? 1/7 and negative 7 over 1. Because they would have had to be different signs and reciprocals. So if this had been negative 7 over 1, we would have written perpendicular. If it would have just been negative 1/7, we would have written neither. Because remember, to be perpendicular, they have to be reciprocals and opposites, not one or the other, both. Okay, let's move on to number 9, which is very much like number 5 that we just did earlier. So number 9 wants us to first put the equation in slope-intercept form, and when we did 5, we did that last, but they want us to do that first and read the pieces from it. So not a problem. Let's go ahead. We have x minus 2y equals 8. And remember, slope-intercept form means y equals mx plus b. So that's our goal, is to get y alone. So to get y alone here, we need to bring the x over. So right now it's positive 1x, so we need to subtract 1x from the left and subtract 1x from the right. So now the x is gone from that side, which is our goal, and we have negative 2y equals, and remember how we want to switch the order so it looks like this. So negative 1x should be first and positive 8 second. So you keep the signs that are in front of it with it. So negative 1x, positive 8. And it's that last step that a lot of students go too quick on and they miss signs. So be careful with this next step. The opposite of multiply by negative 2 is divide by negative 2. So as you're figuring out your signs, make sure you're doing that carefully for this next step. So now I have positive 1y, which is just y equals 2 negatives again is positive 1/2 x. When I put this one on the test, I can't tell you how many people write negative 1/2 x. 2 negatives is a positive. So positive 1/2 x. And now 1 negative is negative, so that would be 4. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. A positive divided by negative is negative. So there's my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So now I can write my important stuff. My y-intercept, remember this is the y-coordinate, and y-intercept always has x0, so this is going to be 0, comma, negative 4. Don't lose that negative. And my slope, which I'm going to need for my graph, but I like to call it rise over run, is 1 over 2. And I always write that. I told you when we were learning it in class, because lots of students accidentally run first. So I always write it, and then I'll know I'm doing it in the correct order. So to graph, we learned that first you graph the y-intercept, 0, negative 4. And then from that point, you rise 1 and run 2. So rise 1, run 2, rise 1, run 2. And there's my 3 points. And we're ready to connect. And arrows on both ends. And remember, you can do more than 3 points, but you should never do less. So 3 should be the minimum. And there's our nice, slightly beautiful line. There we go. And I believe that's all they asked for. Write the equation. We did. Graph using the slope and y-intercept. We did. Done. Okay, let's go ahead and work on number 10. Write the equation of the line given the slope. Oh, okay. Read the problem, Kim. Write the equation of the given lines in slope-intercept form. So that means every answer, they want the final answer to look like this. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to use that formula to find it, but that's where they want the final answer. So when we were doing this in class, we switched back and forth. We did y equals mx plus b on one, and then we did y minus y1 on another. So we'll do the same thing here. So let's use this form first. So slope, that means this is my m, this is my x, this is my y. So I plug in what I know. -3 equals, in place of m, 2 times x, which is 4, plus b. So I like to turn it around, so I'm going to write it as b plus 8 equals -3, because this is 8 plus b, which is b plus 8. -3, since I'm solving for b, I like it on the left. So then I can see b equals -11. Then I go up into y equals mx plus b, and I fill in what I know. I know my b is 11, and I know my m is 2. So I plug those in, and I'm done. Just make sure you don't stop here. This is not writing the equation. This is called finding b. This is writing the equation. So y equals 2x plus 11. Oops, I forgot my negative sign, didn't I? I was looking going, why does that look weird? That's why it looks weird. So change that to a minus, okay? 2x minus 11, not plus. Okay, we'll come back up and change that in a second when it dries. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next one. So on this one, let's use this form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And unless the problem says otherwise, it doesn't matter which formula you use. You can use either one, but I just want to use them both just so you get comfortable with them, because you may have a teacher that uses only this, or you may have a teacher that uses only this. So I want you to be able to go back and forth between the two. Okay, so before I forget, I want to go ahead and put my minus there. So -3, -8, -11, and there's my snoring dog. So there we go. Y equals 2x minus 11. I don't know why I had that strange feeling wash over me like, oh, what did I do wrong? And I'm glad I went back and checked my work. Intuition, I guess. Okay, so for this next one, using the other formula, and like I said, if you want to use this formula again, you can, but I just want to make sure you're exposed to both. So when we use this formula, we call it x1 and y1, and then here's my m. So it's going to be y minus -3 equals m, -4/5 times x minus 6. So y minus -3 equals -4/5 times x minus 6. So I like to put my multiplication sign there because I know this is going to be a calculator problem here. So I'm getting it all ready for the calculator. I know double negative turns to positive, so I'm going to do that because I do not want to do the next step until that's done. So then I get y plus 3 equals -4/5 times x is -4/5 x. And a negative times a negative is positive. Let's go ahead and type it in the calculator. I think we're going to run out of time, but we can finish on the next video. So -4/5, -4, fraction bar 5 times -6 is +4 4/5. and we'll finish from there